Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, one and all.
Good afternoon from Ecuador. And we are going right now directly to our star of the show. My name is Iris, and who we are seeing right now is the Andean Condor, preening on the rock surface just in front of us. It's still far away, that's why the camera is a little bit shaky, but we are going for it right now because they are starting flying every minute, and right now is the best time to see it in action on the rock surface over here. We are in Antisana Nature Reserve, a very small nature reserve compared to others in the Andes, and this is the best place to see the Andean Condor still in Ecuador. We have very few of them anymore, only in between 100 and 150 individual birds. So it is very important to preserve them, and this is the best place to see them. We have about 20 to 25 individuals living in this area. And the best place to see it is Tambo Condor restaurant here, where we are right now, because here we also have a nesting place, which is actually the only one we can really see on our tours. And right now it is active. It's not yet right on the nest at the moment. This is one of the adults which has the nest there. So it is a breeding pair. This is the female as far as I can see. I can't see the head right now, but I think it was the female sitting in this rock. And you can see it's huge. We are far away, I think about 300 meters by air at least. And you can still see it quite big in the scope. When it's sitting like this, it's about a meter to 1.30 meters high. And when it's flying, and I hope we can see it when it spreads its wing and starts flying.
Iris, just stop there a second. Just stop here a second. Barney, have you got the camera on the Condor for everybody?
Yes, hang on.
We've got the hummingbirds now. Let's get back to the Condor. We'll get back to those hummingbirds in a second, folks. We have dived straight in today, handing over to Iris, because the Condors are quite active, and we want to get it before it flies. When we were warming up this morning, the Condor took off, and we thought we'd lost our opportunity. But hopefully you've got it back there in the scope, and we may even see it take off. Back to you, Iris.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's why we started so directly towards the Condor without any introduction, because it's important to see them before they are actually in flight and flying away, because they might not come back for hours. They are now starting with the first warm air currents to fly. As I said, they are huge birds. They are up to 15 kilos, and they need warm air currents to actually start flying with their huge wings. They have a wingspan from about 2.7 to 3.10 meters. So it takes a while to get them started, but then they can fly for hours without any big wing flapping. They are soaring for maybe 50 kilometers around, checking for food. They're scavengers. They're looking for dead animals, and here we have lots of farms there might be a dead bull or a dead horse somewhere lying around. The farmers know not to take them away. The condors will come and they will take it as their food, and maybe in a week there's only bones left. So when they find food, lots of condors will gather. In this area, I've seen up to 20 condors gathering around one dead animal. And this is the best place to see it. As I said, Antisana Nature Reserve is just the star of this reserve, is the condor itself. So they are very endangered, as I said already, because in former times, people thought they would kill their cows, they would kill calves, especially small animals, and even they would rob children. So that's a legend from the people around here. So they're not well seen, and sadly they are getting killed still by many people. So we have a reproduction efforts to reproduce these condors. We are also in the nests. People try to band them as early as possible. So we can keep track of these condors. Sometimes they have a radio, so we can find them. And that's when it's getting really interesting. These young condors, once they are leaving their nesting area, they might fly from the Colombian border down to the Peruvian border, 800 kilometers. They have been found flying and traveling through the highlands until they settle down, until they find a place where they will start nesting, find a couple, and stay there, more or less stable for their life. So right now we have a nest. The chick is already quite big, but it is in its nesting area itself very much hiding. So maybe if later on we have a little bit of time, we can try to find it, but it's usually hidden behind some bushes. So probably will not be able to see the young bird. It will be soon ready to fly. It's staying for 6 months in its nest. And then it is staying still for about nearly 2 years around the area where it's nesting, where the parents are nesting. So they can even have a new chick, but the young bird will still be around, and sometimes it's even getting fed. So it's a very long parental care, actually. The condors lay one egg every year and a half, more or less, year to 2 years difference. This nesting pair has been very productive. It has been more or less every year nearly that they nest. So it's one of the most productive nesting sites actually in Ecuador. And we are happy to have it in a clear view usually from this place we are visiting with the groups. So it seems that it's staying for a while longer.
We're really enjoying these views, Iris, and as we just continue to see this perch bird, let me just do a couple of introductions because we went breathlessly straight into the presentation there, because as I said, we were a bit frightened the condor might take off and then we'd be left with no bird at all. We are about an hour and a half southeast of Quito, up towards Antisana volcano. In a short while we'll show you some drone footage of the area so you can get an idea of where we are. Tambo Condor is a rustic little restaurant up in the Antisana Reserve that Iris takes our groups to. Our Galapagos groups come here, and also we spend a day here, Iris, don't we, at the end of our Andes and Amazon tour to enjoy the high Andean scenery and these special birds.
Yeah, so the condor obviously is not the only bird here. And well, I'm coming here very frequently. My name is Iris Schaffer, or Iris, you can call me. As you can see, I'm not Ecuadorian, but I'm living here since nearly 17 years, I think. And I fell in love with this country and with nature as soon as I arrived here. A little bit later on, I also fell in love with an Ecuadorian who is now my husband, and I have a lovely little daughter at home. And I'm still able happily to go on tours with Naturetrek and go to these wonderful places around Quito and around the whole country. So this place, Antisana Reserve, is just an hour away, as Andy said, from Quito. And it is very easily accessible. And every tour which goes to Galapagos actually gets an extension possibility to this place to see the condor and see all the other really special birds we can find in the highlands. On a good day here in the highlands, you can see over 40 species of birds, in between smallest birds like hummingbirds, obviously, up to finches, furnarets, and also waterfowl. We get to a lagoon. Down here in the valley, we have a lagoon as well. Mika Lagoon is up in the highlands. So we can get different species of ducks, and especially the silvery grebe, which is a quite a rare bird with very few places you can see in the country. Sadly, we can't go up there because there's no internet. We can't see it today, but we'll have fantastic birds here around the place as well, namely the condor. And also when we later on will move on to the hummingbirds, we'll have some really nice views. Another really special bird we will search for if we go to Antisana is the Andean Ibis, or also black-faced ibis. So depends on the list how it's called and if it's considered a subspecies or its own species. And there are very few of this subspecies left here in Ecuador. In Antisana, you can see groups up to maybe 40 birds foraging in the high grasslands up at the very top part where we are going in Antisana. So this is another one of the very special birds we can find here. So back to the condor, the one we see right now. I think you're still able to look at it.
Iris, we've got a question.
Adult.
We've got a question from
Yes.
Pamela Gardiner. Thank you for your question, Pamela. She says, I thought condors were all black. What's the difference between the males and the females?
The plumage is the same pretty much. Maybe the male might have a bigger, fluffier neck collar, white neck collar, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. But if you look at their head closely, the female has a normal bird head, whereas the male has a big crest and also kind of a wattle below its throat. So in this bare skin, you can see the difference in between male and female much better than the rest of the bird.
Yeah, Barney, can we just flick over to the hummingbirds? Because there's quite a bit of activity going on. We've had a good look at the condor now.
Yeah, the condor is staying stable. So let's go for the hummingbirds now. We have some really special ones at the moment. Beautiful activity. Maybe can we change there? Or shall I change?
Yeah, we've got the hummingbirds on the screen here.
There we go. Can you see the hummingbirds now?
Yep.
Yeah. So right now we can see a sparkling violet ear. That one is, well, one of the most common highland hummingbirds we get here. You can see this beautiful purple tufts on its ears. They can spread them when they are getting excited, when they're fighting over food or over territory. They get very excited. They fluff up their purple tufts on their ears, the ear coverts. Otherwise, it's also as such a very aggressive hummingbird, which attacks all the other hummingbirds trying to get to his feeder. But today we have a lot of activity on the feeders, so we'll soon enough get other species coming in, like right now. That's another quite territorial bird. He's sitting right now behind the feeder, but we'll get to see it soon enough again. There is a shining sunbeam behind it. Oh, fight going on between two of the sparkling violet ears. So here we have a third one. Oh, we just got the tail when it was flying away. That was black-tailed Trainbearer. And now here's another star of the show, giant hummingbird. This is a really special hummingbird. Look at this. Look at this huge wings. It's over 21 centimeters of wingspan. Imagine that for a hummingbird. This is really the biggest hummingbird you can find. And it is about the wingspan of a starling in comparison. So the smallest hummingbird in comparison to that one would be the bee hummingbird in Cuba, which is 10 times smaller than the giant hummingbird. Imagine. So this is as big as it can get for a hummingbird, because the hummingbirds, as you know, are the birds with the highest metabolism of all birds. They need to eat about half of their body weight each day, and they drink several times their body weight. So as you can see, they have to feed a lot, such a big hummingbird, to actually get their metabolism working. That one here is actually also the slowest flyer. Here you have it again. Sitting down just behind it. Yeah.
It's a stunning view. That's a stunning view, Iris. And you guys have done a great job setting the cameras up today. We're looking northwest here. So just describe, Iris, what we can see behind the hummingbird feeder there.
Oh, yes, that's a wonderful view towards the Secas Lagoon in the lower part of the valley. And in the very back, you can see the big mountain, that is Pichincha Mountain. So on the base of it, there is Quito. You get an idea of how far we are away from the city. And behind Pichincha Mountain, you will go down to the northwest, where most of our groups go. The Cock of the Rock tour and everything is going behind Pichincha Mountain, down towards the northwestern region, where you get down into the subtropics of the Chocó area.
So just to be clear, so the capital of Ecuador, Quito, nestles in that cloud there, just at the base of Pichincha. Those of you that have joined us for our 2 virtual tours in Ecuador so far, in Mindo. Mindo is just the other side of that big mountain you see in the background there. And actually, we've got another virtual tour in Mindo coming up at the end of the month. We'd love you to join us for that. So today's stunning scenery, some very special birds, not the diversity we get in the Mindo area because we're quite high here in a different kind of habitat, but stunning views there and lovely weather this morning for you, Iris. So I think you're a bit chilly, are you? About 5 or 6 degrees?
Yes, it's about 5 to 8 degrees right now. And but it will warm up as soon as the sun comes out. We are not yet in the high dry season that's sometimes getting quite windy, but today is just the perfect weather for birding. I would love to go all day long birding today. Maybe I will. So maybe we can change the camera again back to the condor if you want to, because the hummingbirds are a little bit quiet at the moment. Maybe I can put it quickly on the condor. Oh, no, go back to the hummingbirds one more time. Soon enough, we might be able to see another species of hummingbird. Right now, it's not on the feeder. We have the camera on, but it might come back. We had a great sapphire being coming in, as far as I can see. Maybe it will come back to the hummingbird feeder. In the meanwhile, we'll look at the condor again. As I said, they have a bare skin around their head. So sometimes when they're getting excited over food or when they are mating, the color can change to a rather pink. Right now, when they're roosting, you can see it's a gray head they have. So it takes about 6 to 8 years to get the absolute complete adult plumage. And it's also about 6 years of age that they are like considered adult and possibly reproductive, but it takes a long time for them to find a couple. They mate for life. So it's quite complicated nowadays with so few condors to actually that they find a couple and can settle down in a safe nesting place. And then, as I said, every 2 years, one chick, more or less, every 1.5 to 2 years, there's one chick coming.
Let's just have a look at the drone footage, Barney, while we've got a moment of quiet on the hummingbird feeder, just to give people a sense of where we are.
All right.
This is just 1 minute of footage, folks, just to give you a bit of a sense of the landscape around. So Tambo Condor, the place where Iris is sitting is towards the top of the field of view there. See the drone operator bottom left, that's Pancho and our Ecuadorian crew. This is Laguna De Secas, which Iris showed you behind the hummingbird feeder. And those are the slopes of Antisana. See that huge lava flow there? That dates from 1801, 1802, with the snowy cap of Antisana hidden up in the cloud there, 18,700 feet. It's a very tough alpine climb, if any of you are into your mountaineering. One of the iconic species of the Ecuadorian Andes, the spectacled bear, present in the reserve and often seen by a group, so they will be extremely fortunate to see one today on the virtual tour. And if you can just show the still, Barney, of Antisana. Sparkling Violetear back on the feeders. What altitude are you at there, Iris?
In meters, it's 3,500 meters, 11,600 feet of altitude.
So there is the hulking
Right.
massive Antisana. It's quite a technical climb with lots of fissured glaciers towards the top. That just gives you a sense of where we are today. So yeah, back to you, Iris. Where do you want to go? Hummingbird feeder? I see the Condor is still on the cliff edge there.
Hummingbird feeders right now, we have a few species back. Right now, the shining sunbeam is really nice. Could you change it to the hummingbird feeders? There we go.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we're on there now.
Shining sunbeam and also sparkling Violetear, and yeah, that's the two. I've seen a question, how do hummingbirds know if there is, or where there's food in the feeders? Hummingbirds go mostly for the color of their flowers. So they go to a range of flowers in between yellow, orange, red, purple. They go for these bright, colorful flowers. And obviously that's why the hummingbird feeders are in the same color. And they will try and probe. And it takes a while. If you have hummingbird feeders, you have to be patient to get these birds. You need them clean every day with new sugar water every day. And then take them, it takes weeks or months. The hummingbirds are getting accustomed to it and accept them as their feeding places. But then it's common knowledge for them. They know very well where to find their food and they pass it on. So the amount of hummingbirds gets higher every time they are around. And obviously not all species do use these feeders. Some might have special bill shapes, which makes it difficult to feed on these feeders. For example, we have thornbills, hummingbirds with the tiniest type of, oh, there's a new hummingbird, probably black-tailed trainbearer. I've seen it very shortly before. As when it's flying, you can see this enormous tail it has. The tail is about how long is it? About 15 centimeters, I can tell you in centimeters. And the body about another 10. So it's quite a long hummingbird.
Its tail is just hidden from view there. Let's see if it perches left or right so we can appreciate those long streamer tail feathers.
Exactly. There is a sexual dimorphism in these two. The male has this very long tail, whereas the female has maybe a 2-inch tail. So it's a much shorter tail, obviously easier for nesting as well. The males do not nest. They stay around, but they are not nesting.
Nice views of the giant hummingbird there. Giant hummingbird. Iris, I always think that shining sunbeam is one of the most evocative bird names we have in English. I'm just interested in German and Spanish. Do you have an equally attractive name for shining sunbeam?
Let me see. I'm a little bit out of right now with this question. Let me just think a moment about the names in English and in German and Spanish, because I'm not quite sure what it is, because we are usually guiding in English anyways. So let me just switch back to the other languages. In the meanwhile, I will tell you a little bit about the hummingbirds. Yes, the shining sunbeam is really special because if you watch them from the back, we might get lucky and see one of the males with the back towards us. They have an iridescence on the back, which looks like a rainbow. So it's really like the shining sunbeam is quite a good name for this bright, colorful bird. Let me think what it is in German.
Oh, don't worry, Iris. I've put you on the spot there. I'll answer another couple of questions. Christine says,
the Germans are usually much dry. They're much drier with their names. Not that funny.
Oh, right. Okay. Christine says, how high is Antisana? Just over 18,700 feet. And Katie, you're asking, be good to see views of where we stay. Well, this is a day trip from Quito, so there isn't really any accommodation up here for a group, although I think Pancho and Iris have stayed up here in a small guest house overnight. But
Yeah.
with a group, we'd do a day trip.
Groups now. Exactly. Yeah. So the place itself is, let me talk a little bit about Vladimir then. It's a local farmer who actually a few years ago started a tiny little roadside restaurant, and the birding groups started to stop there, and birding specialists, and he started to get into birding. And he's now very much involved in the condor conservation program, monitoring the condor all the time, the nest, and also up in the highlands is riding up. He's reforesting his whole property. So if people are interested, when we are going here, they can also plant their own tree in his property. So we are about 100 meters away from the steep slope down into the valley to Secas Lagoon. And there's some native forest. And behind his property on the other side of the road, there's also some native forest. So if he manages to build like a little corridor, a reforested corridor, we get much more species in his place. And obviously it will help the birds as well to move around. So he's very much involved in nature conservancy, as there are many other farmers which started to put up hummingbird feeders or in other ways attract birds so they can actually get birding groups into their property and get a little bit of money from it. So it's so important. Birding tourism is helping so much to the local farmers and to all the people in the countryside, and it really helps stopping like more extractive activities. That they don't have to log anymore, they don't have to cut down the forest anymore. So it's so important to have the birding groups at some point back to the country. Can't tell you how relieved we would be all to see conservancy getting rewarded again in this country.
Really important point, Iris. We've talked about those points in the virtual tours of Mindo. So important with these local communities involved and now depending on dollars from visiting tourists. Here's a trainbearer back.
Yes, there's the black-tailed trainbearer. Trainbearer refers to the trains of a dress. Yeah, how you call it in English? Is it a
tracks?
Tuxedo?
Sorry,
well, for a nicely dressed man, so that's why it is trainbearer. And yeah, depending on this one here is all black. If you go to some other areas, we have the green-tailed trainbearer, which has a little bit shorter and more brilliant green tail in the wetter areas in the highlands. So we can get two species of the trainbearers usually. Okay, let's see what the condor is doing. Maybe in the meanwhile, still sitting, I think. Yeah, it's still sitting.
What's the conservation status of condor in Ecuador, Iris? We have a question from Jeremy Kelsey asking whether the veterinary drug diclofenac is used in South American countries. We've had huge problems in Africa and Europe and across Asia with that, of course.
Yes, I think it is used actually. I don't think there's any ban on it. On the other hand, I think in the very high areas, the cattle is pretty much left on its own. They don't use it a lot because they're quite resistant animals, and they keep them pretty much on their own until they're big, and then they catch them to get them onto the market. So I don't think they use a lot of medicine on the highland cattle here. I haven't heard that is the biggest problem for the condor. The condor has a bigger problem because of poisoned food. Some farmers lay out poisoned meat, not for the condor especially, but for stray dogs, which might attack their sheep, for example. So many times the condor find this food first, or they find the dead dog and they're getting poisoned. That is a big problem to educate the farmers that they don't do this. And the other thing, as I already said in the beginning, there are some misconceptions about the condor and about the danger to animals. Most people here think they are actually raptors, and maybe you know the condor is a scavenger. He can't even use his feet or his beak like a raptor. The beak is a little bit, it has a hook, but it's rather straight in the beginning. And also the feet, it's not claws. They can't close them. They can walk very well with their feet. They have huge feet, but they can't take an animal and carry it away, for example. It's not possible. Everything they eat, they have a pouch pretty much where they can keep it, and they can eat up to several pounds at once, and then they can starve as well for several days. So they don't have to eat every day. If they find one good food, they will, on that animal, they will eat as much as they can, and then maybe they don't have to find the next animal in a few days. So there are very few cases known where a condor actually pushes a sheep over the ridge of a mountain, so it falls down and it can feed later on that animal. But usually it's not doing this. He's usually really trying to find dead animals. Oh, here we have the shining sunbeam in the picture. We had one with the back towards us, but I think it was probably a female. I couldn't see a lot of a rainbow color going on. No, see, that might have been a female right now. Not this shining rainbow color, but nice to see this two shining sunbeams interacting, probably.
My good friend Rob Williams, who's a conservation biologist and Naturetrek tour leader, he's lived for a long time in South America. He's written in the chat to us panelists that there's no evidence yet of the effects of diclofenac on New World vultures, which would include condors. So thanks for that comment, Rob.
Yes. So yeah, but actually, there is a big effort made to.
Well, can we go back to the condor, Barney? He's fluffing his wings. Might take off.
Let's go back to the condor. Quick, before it starts flying. Well, maybe it was only starting to stretch. Yeah, as I said, there are some breeding programs, but they're not yet working in Ecuador. Maybe because they are not the right couples together, which can mate. They've made the effort a few years ago, but as I said, they mate for life, and if it's not the right couple they're with in this breeding programs, it's not working. There may be two couples which try to reproduce in captivity, but without success yet. Oh, now maybe it starts flying soon. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's true to say, Iris, isn't it, when we lead these tours in Ecuador, if you do a survey at the end of the tour for people to say what their top bird was, their favorite bird, condor is pretty much always in the top 5.
Yes. And if we are lucky, sometimes the condor just flies directly overhead here in Antisana. So it's a really a big treat to get this bird so close. Seldom that you can see a bird of this size so close as an Antisana sometimes. So yeah, Antisana Highlands, I wanted to talk a little bit about the highlands and its importance, because also it's not only a conservancy for the condor up here, this nature reserve. It's mainly here actually the main part of the reserve is a water reserve. We have the Mika Lagoon, which we are visiting with our groups because of the ducks and the silvery grebe. This is also one of the big water reservoirs for Quito. And we have very clean water in the highlands, and most of the water for the highland cities actually comes from the highlands, east or west. Let me see, we're getting some signs that we should change camera, but I don't know which camera he's looking for. Well, let me see. Oh, there seems to be a Bush-Tyrant. Streak-throated Bush-Tyrant, I think, on this pole here. Ah, it just flew off. So we had a different bird. Unexpected to see another bird here. Happily we could get it. It was one of the tyrants of the highlands. And just a short appearance, but you can see here, it's not only hummingbirds and condors. We have lots of other birds, but it's a little bit complicated right now with our location that we can actually get a bird different to those where we can focus our cameras on. So as I said, the highlands are very important for water conservancy and also for carbon, how you call it, capture of carbon. Yes, streak-throated Bush-Tyrant. Thank you, Andy. So the highlands have a huge amount of plant material in the soil. Like in the northern hemisphere, the plant material is not readily getting absorbed by the living plants. Like in the Amazon rainforest, you get most of the carbon inside the living plants. Here in the highlands, it's the other way around. Most of the carbon is actually inside the soil, and it's capturing a lot. Even if you compare it to the Amazon rainforest, I think it doubles the amount of captured carbon in the Paramo Highlands, which is quite an interesting date. So that's why it's also extremely important to conserve these areas. So this carbon is not liberated again to the atmosphere. And we have huge amounts of water, like a sponge, stored in this soil as well. If we wouldn't have the highlands, it would all erode very quickly. We wouldn't have water for the highlands. We would have floods in the lowlands. So the conservancy of the highlands is crucial in Ecuador. We have two ridges, two Andean ridges. We are right now in the eastern ridge of the Andes. And if we would go just behind Antisana, towards the east, going towards the east, over Antisana and down to the Amazon region, we would get into the area of Guacamayos and San Isidro, Cosanga. So that is another area we are visiting with the Naturetrek tours. So actually you get, sometimes in some tours you get to visit the highlands, and then you drive around the mountain of Antisana and you go to the backside where you go directly into the subtropical cloud forests and foothills towards the east, which is also a very diverse area, not only in birds, but everything, plants, amphibians, and so on. So it's one big reserve. It's connecting later on to Sumaco, Napo Galera's reserve towards the east. So highland areas are connected to the cloud forests and to the lowlands of the east, but still you have to be aware that very few park keepers are in these parks. So it is important as well, our presence to these places. So hunters or people who extract plants or species can be scared away by the presence of tourists, for example, which are making it difficult for people to actually hunt or damage these areas.
That's great, Iris. Do you want to get up and just have a wander around with your laptop and just show us some of the surroundings? And just while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you also about another very special habitat up in the Andes, the Polylepis Forest, the red-barked trees that have been cut down across much of the Andes, mainly for firewood. Well, what's the status of the Polylepis remnants in Ecuador? Is that quite stable? And just to mention about some of the special birds that live there.
Yes, it is more or less stable. Can you change to my picture if I walk around? I don't think I can right now. Can we change to my picture? Oh, here we go. All right, so I'll show you a little bit around in the restaurant. We're here in the second floor. Outside, we have our equipment, filming. That's how you get served here. That's where we go with our groups. This is breakfast. Later on, we'll have a wonderful lunch as well. With our groups, we usually get lunch here. Now I'll get down. This is the view towards Quito. And actually, if you can look through the window, you might get a new hummingbird. It's Tyrian metaltail sitting in the bush. Now it's on the feeder. Can you see this? A very
Yes, we
tiny
can.
hummingbird sitting there.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Just a new hummingbird for you guys. All right. So actually, Vladimir was very busy during the pandemic. He built the second floor during the pandemic with the high hopes that tourism will start again and it is getting better for him and his family. This is the lower area. You might remember. This is the old part of the restaurant where we usually were with our groups. Now we have this wonderful upper part. We have Veronica working in the kitchen. Hello. Okay. Another mammal from the highlands. Okay, so this is the place where we are actually staying. Do we have any other questions? Oh, the Polylepis Forest is more or less stable. It is getting reforested in places like Antisana. Part of it, he's reforesting also with Polylepis in his property. And other places also do the same. Sometimes a mixed effort because in some places they started to reforest with species which are not native to Ecuador or not native to the area because they're growing faster or so on. So Ecuador, I think, has 10 or 12 native species.
But Barney,
sometimes
just while Iris talks us through this, just go back to the hummingbird feeder while Iris talks, please, Barney.
So here we go. The Polylepis is a very good hardwood, so farmers still tend to cut it down for fence posts, for example, or for buildings, for construction. It is not allowed anymore, but anyway, in the highlands, they do this. Well, we get a very nice array of birds which use these forests. Mainly the giant conebill, obviously, which we usually try to find in the area of Papayacta when we go east. That is a good area to look for the giant conebill. Here we have black-tailed trainbearer back on the feeder, but also we have many mountain tanagers which are using these places as a place to go when it's really cold. We have several species which are altitudinal migrants. And the Polylepis forests tend to be very, very dense. So it's a good place for birds to get in there when it's getting too cold in the higher areas. They hide in these types of forests. Okay, let me change the camera because that one here closed down. One moment, I just have to tell Pancho that he's on his camera again. Yeah, the condor is still sitting there and preening. There is actually sometimes we are lucky to see also a black-chested buzzard eagle on these walls because they also have usually a nesting site on this rock face on the other side of the valley. And then it's getting really interesting. The black-chested buzzard eagle is about the half the size of the condor. So he's getting quite aggressive around his nest. So when they are nesting, he's sometimes attacking the condors when they are flying along this slope. And it's impressive. The condor is a wonderful soarer and they don't need to move their wings a lot. As I said, it's a very heavy bird. And when it's getting attacked by the other raptors, he has a hard time to defend himself, and he's usually flying off as quick as possible because flapping his wings and trying to turn around quickly in the air is not what he's good at. Black-chested buzzard eagle
Iris,
is hunting. Yes?
It's Barney here. We've just had some questions come in. So First of all, how long do Andean condors tend to live for? And then also, how do they teach their young to fly from such high nests and precarious perches?
Yeah, they have a very long lifespan. It's one of the longest lifespans of birds. The condor can get up to 70 years. There's a 70 years old. How do they teach the young to fly? Well, the nests are usually on these rocky slopes, but on places where they have a little, like a few square feet where the bird, or square meters where the bird can walk around. So it's like a rock surface where the bird can move 30 feet to one or the other direction. So the young ones, they are quite active up there. They're moving their wings on these ledges and trying to fly well. And then they, at some point when it's ready to fly, they will have to go and have to let go. When they are really in the beginning of their flight attempts, they try on this little ledge in front of their nest usually for a few meters, and then they just have to go and try to find another rock where they can sit down soon enough. As I said, it's usually soaring more than flying, so once he's starting to jump around in between the rocks, at some point he'll find out how to use the air currents and fly. But it takes a while, and it's not absolutely graceful at the beginning.
Barney, the sun has come out on the hummingbird feeder. Can we just go back to that? And folks, 45 minutes are up. It's flown by as usual. Lovely sparkling Violetear. They're catching the early morning and day in sunlight. You're very welcome to stay with us for the next 10 to 15 minutes. We'll close down at 2 o'clock. But if you are coming to the end of your lunch break, need to get off, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll put a link in the chat as usual. If you'd like to leave a tip or a donation to support the guides in Ecuador, that money will be split between Naturetrek and our guides equally. That'd be fantastically well appreciated. We've got other virtual tours coming up. Monday lunchtime, we're in Panama again at a different venue, Canopy Lodge in Panama. So do join us for that one. And then later next week, we are back in Spain again with other virtual tours coming up too. So do stay tuned. We have a virtual tours page on our website. Thank you so much, Iris and Panjo, for all of your work today, setting this up and your fantastic commentary. It's been great to enjoy these early morning views and some starbirds. We build this virtual tour around the condor and the giant hummingbird, and we've had some very special views of those two species. It's been fantastic.
Good. I also saw that we have a few open questions actually here, so maybe the last few minutes I can use to answer these questions.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Okay, I see Claire asking about the cinchona trees that are invasive in the Galapagos and also a problem in the mainland. Not up here, as cinchona trees are lower down in the cloud forests, but they should be. Cinchona trees are actually native to the cloud forests of Ecuador mainland, so there are no problem here. No, I have never tried that a hummingbird drinks from a nectar feeder on my mouth, but they have sat down on my head sometimes when you're in feeding areas with lots of hummingbird feeders. They're getting very close to humans, and they sit down on your fingers, on your head, and if you hold the hummingbird feeders. How do hummingbirds deal with winter or lack of flowers? Well, we are in a tropical country. We don't really get winter. We get rainy season and dry season. Right now, we're in the beginning of the dry seasons, like more or less the change from wet season to dry season. The temperature is not changing a lot. We just get more sunny days, less rainy days. Flowers are here all year long. You're right. Sometimes there are some flowers missing in the dry season or in the rainy season, vice versa. But usually there are generalist enough to feed on flowers all year round, or they have altitudinal migration to go to some other place where there are flowers at that point of the year where they can actually feed on. for example, when we go to Pichincha Mountain, in Pichincha Mountain, there is one endemic hummingbird, which is actually endemic to Ecuador, black-breasted puffleg. And he has some altitudinal migration, where sometimes parts of the year you can see it in the reserve of Yanacocha, and other times of the year you can't see it. There's some longer question. Are there many condors in the region? I already said about 100 to 150 individual condors left in Ecuador. Hopefully at some point more. There was Paul asked, there was a high-pitched whistle-like call. Was it a giant hummingbird? I'm not sure which of the calls you mean right now. There could have been a giant hummingbird to have this like quite a piercing whistle. But most of the time we hear the sparkling violet ears at the moment fighting, and also the shining sunbeams. I think the other one is not really a question. Do hummingbirds eat? What do hummingbirds eat other than sugar water? They, in nature, obviously, they feed on nectar, on pollen sometimes as well, from the flowers itself, and on mainly on small insects and spiders. They eat a lot of insects and spiders, actually. And especially during their nesting season, they switch their diet mostly to insects, actually, to get the proteins. So, all right. Those are the questions I could find. I think that we've answered all the questions.
Thank you very much, Iris. I see that the condor's taken off, hasn't it, when we weren't watching? The condor has gone, as far as I can see, from its perch.
The condor is gone, yes. Maybe, do you still see them flying, the condors?
See if Pancho, because before we started broadcasting, we had it in flight view. See if Pancho has got them circling around us all.
When we are lucky, we can see it in flight view. Pancho is already checking. He's already checking if we can
Lovely
find
views of the sparkling violetears here as we check.
But I'm not sure. I think it's a condor. I think I see a black-chested buzzard eagle flying. Do you think you can get the black-chested buzzard eagle, Pancho? Just over the ridge. Hard to get though. As I said, it's a little bit smaller than the condor, but Pancho is doing his best to actually get it in flight. So we would have another rapture, actually. As I said, black-chested buzzard eagle is nesting in these areas, and he's a common resident here. And we can
switch the camera, please, Barney. There we go.
Yeah, here we go. We have it. There we go. There's one of them. I think there was a couple flying. I see the different individual bird as it is in the camera, but it seems to be the black-chested buzzard eagle as well. Very broad wings in comparison to a very short tail. That's usually the sign of it. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the time with us today. And maybe we can change back to the hummingbird feed if you have a giant hummingbird sitting there. Or would you like to stay on the buzzard eagle?
That's fine. We've just got a request. Is it possible, Iris, for Pancho to take the telescope back to the condor roost, but then zoom out so we have a sense of how far away it is?
Okay, Pancho, can you do that? Did you hear us? Can you go back to the place where the condor was sitting and then zoom out so we can see how far away we are from the place the condor was sitting? That was about it. That was where the condor was sitting. It's not quite clear. Yeah, that's where it was sitting. That's the further away we can actually get it. We could actually take the camera away from the telescope, and then you can see the whole picture of how far away it was.
Iris, is it possible for you to take your laptop outside and have that view behind your shoulder?
One moment, please.
A lot of you are staying on with us. Thank you for staying so long. Some people are off at the end of their lunch break, but a lot of you are still on the call. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have, sitting here in Basingstoke, and it reminds me of being back in Ecuador. Great. Okay, so that's the line of cliffs where the Condor is. You're just muted, Iris. I don't know if you're speaking at all, but you're on mute.
Okay, so maybe very far in the back, you can see a waterfall, and a little bit left of that waterfall, this white stripe going down the mountain. That was where the Condor was sitting. So we are several hundred meters from where it was.
Just lift your camera up a bit.
Sorry?
That's it. You were pointing down at the ground. Just lift the camera up. There we are.
There we are. Okay. All right.
Great.
So you can get a little bit of a general view from the balcony still. So this is the area which is getting reforested straight down into the valley. And if you watch closely down on the bushes, we have a black flowerpiercer. Maybe you can still, you were able to see a blackbird there. I'm not sure if you can get it. Can you see a blackbird down there? That would be a new one as well, black flowerpiercer. That is a lovely one, which is actually making little holes in the base of the flowers to get the nectar out, which is very appreciated by hummingbirds with small beaks, which are using these holes to also get to the flowers, to the nectar. All right, so I hope you enjoyed.
That's great.
Our tour.
Thank you so much, Iris.
I hope I could actually answer all the questions, and I could give you a nice insight to our highlands here in Ecuador. Obviously, you'll see many more species once you get up here into the highlands, and we can go travel around with the car again. I'm waiting for you all, and we are very happy to have you right now on the online tours, but we would much rather like to welcome you back into the country soon enough.
Thank you, Iris. That's brilliant. Barney, let's just go back to the hummingbird feeder for the last 2 minutes. Let's see if we can sign off with a shining sunbeam in a shining sunbeam. Let's see what turns up the last couple of minutes.
Right. Yeah, the activity is a little bit lower now. The very early morning activity has gone, but maybe something shows up. I'm not sure if we are lucky again. Oh, here we go. We get a sparkling Violetear, bright sunlight on it.
I think the black flowerpiercer might be down in the bushes, just down to the bottom right of the hummingbird feeder. I don't know if you can see that, folks. That's a new species for us. It might be a hummingbird. It might be my eyes deceiving me. But lovely views of the violets here.
Let me see on the other side if I can go to the other side of the balcony and see if I can get anything else down there without disturbing the other hummingbirds. Maybe some flowerpiercers still around. Yeah. Not really.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there then, Iris. Once
Okay.
again, thanks so much. It's been a wonderful hour. Enjoy the rest of your day up there in the Andes.
Okay. Well, I hope I see you soon all together, and goodbye. I hope we can meet soon enough. Bye-bye, Andy. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye,
It's been a
Iris.
pleasure.
And thank you for joining us, everybody. Good to have you with us today.
Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye, Barney.